Hello, my name is Matthew Bailey. I'm calling in from Vancouver today. I want to present something I've been working with for a little bit, which is scheduled web scraping with R from a server. But more generally, just thinking about running R scripts from a server, working with existing applications, existing web developers, and other non-R programmers. So just as for context, the theme here is just collaborating with others, and by others I mean probably not our programmers, but other web application developers, DevOps teams, graphic designers, database administrators, and so on. So usually we're used to this like typical R workflow where you have your R scripts. It's good if you can organize them better into R functions, R Shiny applications and packages, uh, being sort of an end type product with results and insights being kind of the area where we derive value from. I'm not saying there's anything wrong at all with Shiny applications or our packages too. They're an incredibly useful tool, and in many cases, we are just looking for results and insights too. However, if we're thinking more about collaboration and working with existing applications and others, it's useful to kind of think about how best to bring R into a server type environment and to leverage the use cases of it best while also working collaboratively with others. So the outline here, I'm just going to introduce some non-Shiny R workflows for opportunities for programmers to contribute still to web application development. Specifically, we'll start with just running our script from a command line, then thinking about using a task scheduler, so it's running cron jobs on a fixed time interval, so it could be hourly, weekly, daily, so on. Um, Running R from a server using some kind of API type environment with Plumber, RServe, and so on, and some other kind of exciting extensions that we could start to think about. The audience here, I'm focusing kind of specifically on R programmers who want to learn more about this stuff and work collaboratively with web developers to explore opportunities beyond Shiny. But I'm going to keep everything kind of high level here, so no technical detail instructions or detailed demos. So here's just like a systematic diagram of typical web application architecture too, where we have our server that lives somewhere in the cloud. Usually this is some even type of cloud hosted service, so it could be like DigitalOcean, Ubuntu, Linux, Droplet type thing, Google Cloud, so on. Each of these will have the file system, some potentially, but not always, some database there, and then some sort of like front end framework, HTML, CSS, JavaScript that the user interacts with, and the whole and request and response pathway. So if we have an existing application, where are we putting R here? First, we're going to kind of log in or connect to the server remotely, install R on the server, install your necessary packages that you're going to use, upload your own tested R scripts that you've made on your own personal computer, and then do something creative with them. Um, I'm going to skip thinking about containers and all that stuff for now, but we'll just assume that it's one instance of R on this remote server. So running our script from a server, what does that mean? What does that look like? So first we develop and test our scripts locally on our personal computer, laptop, and so on offline. So here's some discharge trend summary thing here. Then once I'm happy with that, I'm going to upload it into the server. So I'll connect with some secure file transfer protocol service, kind of log into the server. I can see the folder, upload my script into the directory there. Then I'm going to test my script on the server, so I can either run the R script and just source it, or I can open an R terminal and kind of interact with um, the command line there as you would in RStudio and so on. So this is all great, but then we have to kind of think about where should we use this, and how should we best leverage our existing applications in collaborative setting. So I'm trying to think about where we most likely just drive significant value. So this could be kind of asking yourself, what are you and your team or the R programmers extremely good at in your organization, and what are kind of the gaps in the application too. So some kind of key areas that you're going to probably interact with R in an existing application is scheduled tasks or scheduling running our scripts on a fixed schedule, and this is done with, so this could be every hour you're going to run your R script again, or every day you're going to run it again, or so on there. And that's usually with, for Linux Ubuntu systems, you're looking at the cron job task scheduler. It's just a text file that says what time and when and how frequent do you want to run your R application. And for Windows servers, it's a task scheduler. The other way is to interact with our scripts interactively, where the user does something and then some backend language goes ahead and calls the R script. The R script is then run on the server. It does something, and then potentially it's going to read and write files to the file system, so CSV, JSON, images, etc. Or it could connect to a database and read and write stuff there. We should really kind of think about, so unlike in Shiny where you're going to do everything exclusively with R, I'm trying to think about where are high value areas for contribution and other areas which are going to be significantly more challenging. You're going to have to reinvent the wheel a whole lot by yourself. So I really think kind of routine scheduled tasks on with cron jobs is a really good entry point too. So this could be something like updating a forecast model with external data. So it's like pulling in weather data from with our vest, and then it's doing something fancy with it, and it's updating some real-time prediction. It doesn't it doesn't have to happen every minute or so, but it could be some kind of hourly or daily task. Also, some kind of complex wrangling and manipulating and mucking around with tons of different data sources is something that's going to be really well suited there. And even for web scraping, once you get the hang of it, it is extremely useful to do that in R and to interact with some other APIs and so on. So something like that could be a really high value use area. You're pulling in a bunch of data and then kind of pushing outputs out to a file system or back to a database. Some of the more kind of complex and challenging areas, which I wouldn't want to use R as the workhorse with an existing application, is just sort of like routine CRUD operations. That's create, read, update, delete. Maybe into any like user authentication, emailing, anything like that. Maybe direct front-end interactive activity, or if there's already another front-end framework in place. And if you're interacting with R in a reactive kind of setting where the user does something, then it runs the R script, you really want to think about avoiding time-consuming tasks that are likely to coincide with high traffic, or to set up some additional scaling and auto load balancing, which is possible, but it's probably not the most enjoyable thing to do if you're just trying to learn and get your feet wet with this stuff. So just to think about a theoretical example application, let's say you wanted to make a COVID case count dashboard that was just using static files, so that's only HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, but it's going to use some local JSON data from the file system to display the data. But before it loads the JSON data, you want R to do some really fancy, you want R to download the data from your external sources, and you want R to do some fancy synthesis, analysis, and modeling from these sources daily. So just kind of thinking about what that's going to look like. You're going to write your R script offline that will download the COVID case count data from various sources, so using RVest, curl, or whatnot there. Then you're going to write maybe another R script that's going to analyze and wrangle with all the data sources and apply some models and predictions. And then it's going to export maybe a JSON data output that's going to be then used by the file system to display in some kind of dashboard setting. Or maybe if there's already a database in place, that you're going to use your R script to write to the database too. And so that's great. This is a great application for cron jobs, web scraping, and task schedules. So let's say whatever the data is updated daily. So I'm going to set my cron job to run the scripts at 6 p.m. every day, and kind of go on and do those tasks. The other big way is running R scripts from a server on demand. So it's responding to some sort of user request. So the user does something, then it triggers an action from one of the backend languages from an existing application that's then going to call the R script from the server and it's going to write to the file system or database or something like that. Some considerations from the second approach, which is more an interactive and reactive kind of setting, is calling R scripts directly from external programs can be slow too. So if you have a R script that's going to load a whole bunch of libraries and import data too, and you're going to expect a whole bunch of users to interact with your website concurrently and do that, you're going to run into some probably pretty weird issues or speed problems there. Again, there's the Plumber API that kind of solves that a little bit, but out of the box, it's single threaded, which means if you have 30 users and your R script takes 10 seconds too, then it all has to run just in a sequence one after another, rather than running all of them together. So you could be waiting there for several minutes. RServe is multi-threaded by default, but it's a little bit harder to set up too. So I'd encourage, if you're new to all this stuff, potentially kind of seeking help in that area and pooling database connections. The SQL Server machine learning service with Python and R is also presents some really interesting opportunities, and I haven't actually explored it too much, but what it involves essentially is writing kind of simple R scripts and then embedding them as stored procedure in your database. But this is limited to SQL Server, so if you're using Postgres or something else, I don't think that would quite work there. And so just in conclusions, if you work with a small to medium scale organization and there's other developers on board, I'd really encourage you to try collaborating on a project for non-shiny integration. Some components of this can indeed be challenging, but the successful integration of our extensions to existing applications can be really rewarding. And thanks again for sitting in here, and let me know if you have any questions.